Hey there, Drawyah here, and welcome to my segment of this year's March Madness for Train Simulator. So today we're taking services class 350 from here in Rugby all the way to London Euston, which is about an hour or so of driving today. Forming the service 1 Uniform 20, so a London Northwestern service from Crewe to Euston. And we're taking a latter part of the journey from Rugby, stopping in the Street at Milton Keynes Central, and then take a train all the way to Euston. So, train's getting self-rated to depart. We're departing on time right now, looking good. We are tracking ourselves on Third Rail's map, so you can see that on the lower right side of the screen, and hopefully should all go to plan quite nicely. We set train up already, as it would be on a intermediary service. Set the accelerator up, and let's get ourselves departing to Euston. So, like I say, taking charge of a Class 350 today. It's in the livery of London of West Midlands trains, and hopefully it should give us a rather good service and an on-time service, of course, to London today. Because like I say, it's about an hour or so from start to finish, and with Dovetail giving me like an hour or so too, getting it going. So we're on a strict timetable today. We're on a strict timetable, and it's my job to get ourselves to London on time. So initially going to speed up to 125 miles per hour as we are running on the fast lines. This is a express train from Crewe to Euston, limited stops on the way. The full service, so starting at Crewe, makes its first stop at Stafford, stopping at Rugeley, Trent Valley, Lichfield, Trent Valley, Tamworth, Ayleston, Nuneaton, Rugby, Milton Keynes Central and London Euston. It should pass around 7:15, 07:14, and arriving expected at 09:36. And so 08:34 right now, fingers crossed. Trying to get there a bit early, goes to plan. So leading train at max acceleration right now, will let train push its way to its limit. There will be a few drops in speed on the way, so for example, soon we'll be coming up towards a tunnel just outside of Rugby. We do slow for that, but for the most part, we should be able to push for the 410 mph speed limit of the train. And hopefully on the way as well, I'll give you a bit of like a bit of a local tour, so a bit of local knowledge. A little bit of what's going on around us. Touchwood, be a pretty fun journey overall. So we're running on the West Coast Mainline South route. This has recently came out for Train Sim World in the 2021 update, part of the Premium Deluxe package of that. Runs from London Euston all the way to Birmingham New Street, with the station, well, main stations all the way. So you've got Watford Junction, Milton Keynes Central, two main big stations down south of the route, and then as you head to the north, you then have the split at Rugby, where you then have the West Coast Mainline and the Trent Valley routes, and then we continue along the West Coast Mainline, and then end up all the way at Birmingham via Birmingham International. So you do get the entire London portion. It's not a bad route, one I do take fairly often before the world shut down on us, of course. Now departures through from Rugby. You zoom out on the map, an idea of where we are in the UK. Rugby just south of Birmingham, very central here in the UK. You can see on the low portion there, I've got a speed limit slow down at 100, well, down to 110 shortly, which is the top speed of our train. So in my case, it's really a case of leave the accelerator at max, and the train will do the work for us. And of course, the West Midlands Railway also run alongside. Well, it's West Midlands Railway as the main parent company, but the London. Whoops, yeah, I'm going a little bit fast there. The London. But the London Northwestern Railway is a subsidiary of this, and therefore they're two separate routes operated by the same TOC, same train operating company, in this case West Midlands Trains. And it was the replacement for the West Midlands Railway, which in 2019 had the changeover from that. So in 2019 we saw the change from West Midlands Trains to London Northwestern Railway, and then we also saw in 2019 a change from Virgin Trains to Avanti West Coast. So in terms of the AI service on this route, we will spot a few high-speed Avanti West Coast trains on the right side of us, and they're passing through Watford Gap. Not in Watford, but has got quite well-known service station, the M6 motorway. We also spot a few London Avanti West Coast services on the route today, and potentially as we start to approach London as well, the service starts to build up a bit. Spot a few London Overground services between Watford Junction and London Euston as well. And of course we also run alongside the Bakerloo line, and that operates from Harrow and Wildstone, and then that's branched away from us at Queen's Park, which then continues its own journey to Elephant's Castle, down through central London, Zone 1. Look at the time, so far so good. We're expected to arrive on time. Actually, we're expected to arrive about 3 minutes early, which means we're doing so far so good. We'll put the speed back up again, since we have dropped down to 90 miles per hour, and to get back up to 125, we can push the train a bit, we can slightly stretch it to its top speed again. The expected time for Milton Keynes Central, that will be at 08:55, so in around, well, kind of 08:40, so 15 minutes, around 15 minutes with our first stop. And then between Milton Keynes Central and London Euston, it's around 40 minutes of non-stop driving, so this is the short bits from Milton Keynes. We do pass quite a few intermediary stations, but none of those we do stop at. There we go, we've got an Avanti West Coast Voyager on the right hand side. The Voyager trains actually on their way out, so they're going to be replaced by Class 800 types on the Avanti West Coast Mainline, and they're expected to arrive late 2021 and continue replacing trains until at least 2023. That's the M42 motor, I believe, on there. Nope, M1, sorry. M1 from London to Birmingham. And the M1 does follow a long portion of the West Coast Mainline. It also follows alongside the Midland Mainline, so where Thameslink train operates, as well as I was going to say the original company, Eastman's Railway, but they've changed now, haven't they? So where the Thameslink operates around Mill Hill and Elstree, the M1 also goes alongside the Midland line there. But for now, it will follow alongside of us here on the West Coast Mainline. You see, the train has pushed up to 113 miles per hour now. It's stable itself at that speed. It does drop down to 120, but that won't cause any slowdown for us on our service today. You see, we've now just hit 08:41, stopping at 08:55. There's no kind of ETA in our stop at Milton Keynes, so once we arrive at Milton Keynes, it'll be kind of our chance for us to kind of check timing. So, how are we doing? How on track are we? And potentially, if we need to speed up a bit, can we muck it around for that as well? But hopefully, there won't be too much need for messing around. Apart from that small bit where we kind of got to 112 on the 110 limits earlier on, we should be able to make it to the end of the route without too many problems indeed. You can see, soon it does change between 120 and 125. Very, very little difference, and that won't cause any little problem for us on this journey today. So, passing now through Weedon Junction is behind us. You can also spot the Midland Main Line on the map. Not so much on our routes right now, but on the map, they're kind of... It is kind of ghosting us on the very north portion of the route, very north portion of the map. The Midland Main Line does follow along with us, not exactly, but it does both end up towards the Midlands. The Midland Main Line focuses in more on the Northampton area, so it goes through St Albans, Luton, all the way up to Northamptonshire through there. Now going through Hayford. The wipers going there. Goes off again. I don't know how to. We've got West Coast Voyager again on the right hand side. There we go. Class 350 itself, so it's an Electrostar unit built in the early 2000s. Built for the West Coast Mainline and built for the intermediary services between London and Birmingham, or in this case Western Railway network as well. So it has a running top speed of 110 miles per hour, which is slightly faster than your conventional Electrostar unit, which runs at around 80, 90, 100 miles per hour. So it does have a slightly higher top speed. It helps through the pantographs on top of the train. These pantographs do allow for higher running speeds, although in this case you just have to see sparks in the background, high amount of culling as you do hit different passes. And also the interior train designed for more, again, slightly more long journey distances rather than your usual commuter services that you do get within the London area down south. I'm going to pass through Gayton Junction coming up next. Gayton Station, of course, in the city as well. But once again, pass straight through it. No need for a stop on the way. We have a look at the main map itself, the only over on the map as well. So, London Euston down south, there's your Bushy loop into Watford Junction. There you go, your St Albans Abbey line, which runs off to the north. We continue up for our line. Spot over here. Bletchley, the station just before Milton Keynes, also Interchange Junction, and also home of Network Rail, I believe. Network Rail have bases in Bletchley and at Milton Keynes, Milton Keynes Central, just up north. So that'll be our first stop. The train is currently in this section of track. Running 8-car unit, Class 350, Billsworth siding just around the side. And now about to interchange with another railway line. The conversion from the left hand side for us this time. Well, it wasn't quite blocked by the window pane there. There it comes. And then from this point on, so as we hit junction, I believe the line then splits from a dual-line track to the full 4-line track of the West Coast Mainline, and that'll run as 4-track all the way to London Euston, where then it kind of runs as 4-track all the way to Watford Junction, then cut across the Watford Viaduct, and then once we hit Harrow and Wolstone, we then join to a 6-track lane. So we'll have the fast line of the West Coast Mainline, you have the slow lines of the West Midlands trains, the London Western Railway, and then you also have the local service of both London Overground and Bakerloo line services. So you can see now running on 4 tracks now, 2 lines both heading towards London. We're running on the fast line, so we won't change over ourselves, we'll be staying on the fast lines, but services that run locally will make a change over to the left hand side now, as we then separate the fast express services from the slower local services. And the only place that really changes is at Milton Keynes. We have a 5th bay platform at the station, and Bletchley would have a few branch lines executed off that as well. We're only now about 7 miles away from Milton Keynes, so in the next couple of moments start looking at slowing the train down, bring it to a halt. Oops. So what happened there, you notice that the yellow light came on for the pantograph VCB down option, so pantograph circuit breaker closed, and basically what's happened there is there's a slight gap in your scenery, and in that section your running on no itinerary, running, and all of a sudden, it disappears. Your pantograph still up, but there's no power being given to the train, and in that short section, the train kind of coasts on its own. As I've not directly interacted with the circuit breaker, as soon as the train connects to the pantograph line again, it will reconnect and carry on giving train power. But there will be small gaps in the line where either at junctions, points, or where maintenance is taking place, there'll be no power gets cut, and in that short section, the train starts to coast for little bits. There you go, it's got a few junctions down below now. At this point, the fast lines and the slow lines will be changing to one another. Now trains are on their correct line all the way now towards London. And up again, we should soon be approaching next station of Milton Keynes. And in the next couple of moments, we'll start thinking about bringing the brakes on. We cut the power of the train now, leave it on the off position master controller. We're using master controller, so it's a combined brake and throttle lever. There's no need for me to kind of mess around with that. Now passing through Castlefork. Still looking at a 9:30 arrival time for London, so actually gained 3 minutes since we last checked the time. Means we're actually doing very good for time. Milton Keynes Central not expected to depart until around, well, we arrive at 08:55, we stop for 5 minutes, and then depart at 0900. We're not going to stop for 5 minutes. We'll stop at the station, we'll do the normal doors open, doors close, and then we'll go in our own time again, just to speed things up a bit, and to give us a good little pace as our train travels down to London. The train is slowly losing speed now, slowly coming down. You'll see Wolverton Station appear on the map at the bottom there. Got a little fun story with Wolverton. So my grandfather, who's from Wolverhampton, normally if he comes down to London, well, used to come to London, he'd always take, well, he'd go down by car, we'd drive him there, or he'd drive himself, and basically, on one occasion, he decided to take the train. Now, for him, he lives at Wolverhampton, always shortened to Wolverton, so I don't know how to put the accents on that kind of stuff. One day, he took the train up to Wolverhampton, and got off at Wolverton, because he assumes that Wolverton was just a shorter name for Wolverhampton, and as a result, he basically ended up stranded. Spoke to the person at the ticket office, and they're like, no, this isn't Wolverhampton, this is the town of Wolverton. So, as a result, he never took the train out to London ever again, because he also took the, he took the slow commuter train, and for him it was the longest journey he'd ever been through. You have all these fast trains whizzing by. And there he is in a stopping train at every single town, every single little intermediary place, and on the way. So that's our family story of Wolverton. Alright, next station will be Milton Keynes, so we need to start preparing ourselves for that. That's about 85 miles per hour, that's all fine. There comes Milton Keynes. Take it on to around 10% power of brake. Okay, 10 will do. But slowly bring that speed down. Maybe 20%. I might not have to go to stopping now. It's an interesting city, Milton Keynes. Got quite a bit, well, it's got history, but it also doesn't have history. So, Milton Keynes was a city built in the 1960s here in the UK. For that, nothing, no station, no towns, no city, and what they wanted was a new city for people to move to that would have low living costs, but to be equidistant from London, Birmingham, Leicester. There's a few other cities as well, I can't remember the full list of it. Basically, wanted a city that was cheap to live in, commutable to major cities around it. And what they also experienced one was a grid layout that allowed people to drive more than walk. So, the city itself was built in the 1960s. It follows a very grid-like layout. If you're driving, it's fine. If you're walking, I have noted, it's not the easiest to get around, so I used to do a lot of skiing in the indoor centre. I think it's Escape for the Milton Keynes. It's an interesting city, Milton Keynes. More often your research, interesting kind of interesting like new housing projects and different expansions here in the UK. Stuff that you may not quite know about. What we do, of course, know about Milton Keynes is the football team, who were Wimbledon Dons. But that's a story for another day. Now coming to station, platform 4, same platform indicated on the real train times as 1 Uniform 20 comes in. We're going 8 car sets, and therefore we're going to push our train up to the 8 car stop board, hopefully. 5 car stops there. Travel a little bit further. Drawyah, cut the brakes. Naturally, let train slow down to the stop location, which is here. We'll brake, nice and slowly. Perfect. Same thing you could ask for a better stop at all, could you? I'll stop the car units. So we're stopping in Milton Keynes now for about a minute or so. Not going to go for the full 5 minutes. Currently on time. We're about 30 seconds early, which again making good progress. And the only stop now for us between here and London Euston is London Euston. So no more intermediary stops. Just a fill on trip down to London. Slow down as we get towards the end of the line. I must say, for a sim that is never a decade old, Train Simulator, still gets its worth out. It's not on a platform, this. Still a lot of fun to go around, and that's for sure. So now the part of Milton Keynes, 0:55. We're expected at London Euston. Normally it's 09:36. Again, now we didn't depart. Well, did say for 5 minutes here. Looking at maybe an 09:31 arrival. It's only around 35 minutes from here to London, and this is running on the slower local train, not Avanti West Coast. If you're taking the high-speed 395 Pendolinos, then that would probably take around 25 minutes to get to London at the high top speed. Another fun, boring fact for you guys, I guess. For those of you who watched the series The Station on ITV about a year ago now, I featured in it for a short 5-minute segment on the 3rd episode. So on the final day of West Coast of Virgin Trains, when it got transitioned to West Coast, basically I took the very final service into Euston. It was a penultimate service. There's one more train going to Birmingham that was stopping later, so I took the last service going to London, because I live in London, of course. And yeah, basically was going to have a bit of fun. Oh look, here I am on the final train, do a bit of a vlog. End up having a TV crew follow me around on the train all day to film what was a 5-minute segment on the episode. But again, nothing that I kind of expected. A lot of fun to do. The camera crew are very good, and yeah, overall quite a lot of fun to put together. A series called The Station, featured on ITV, 3 episodes about a year ago. At some point though, I'd quite like to try and, well, I've got the footage, the 5-minute segment that I appear on. I might choose if I can get permission to upload onto YouTube for a bit of fun reference later on, I guess. So passing through all stations between Milton Keynes Central and Euston. I'm not going to name them all, as I guess I can think of. So yeah, Bletchley in front of us. Then there are a load of stations that I don't know that go into. See, it's not Daimar. It's going to annoy me now. There's a place that I know. I've actually been there as well, but I've kind of completely forgotten what the station's name was, or the town's name. So yeah, it's Bletchley. That's Leighton Buzzard. So Leighton Buzzard, yeah, sorry, another major station I probably should have got as well. Cheddington. I've not been to Cheddington, but I'd love to go there one day. It's a very quiet, open space. Tring, again, another station I probably should have got. Tring, also the departing station of a pretty major crash at what Junction was about later. Come on, what station is it? Hemel Hempstead, that's it, Hemel Hempstead. I should have got that one. So Hemel into Apsley, into King's Langley, again another approach we've got. Then it kind of branches off into a siding there for freight as we enter Watford Junction. Then it gets easy because then we pass through Bushy. Those are underground stations up until we reach Harrow and Wildstone. Then past through stations, that would be Kensington, that would be the Metropolitan Line, London Underground, also Chiltern Main Line. I get back. Then we pass through Wembley Central, past a few freight sidings, the Overground and Bakerloo switch over to our left-hand side. We continue on through. And then eventually, after a few more stations on the Stone lines, we then reach London Euston. So, like I say, we're on the main line now, we're top of the main towns and cities on the way, and then once we reach the Watford DC line, so Tring is like another terminus stop for local services into London. Those are definitely going to be all stopper trains that stop at every single trip on the way, which means that trains going up as far as Birmingham, Northampton, they then... It's how services split, so you have the Tring services that stop at every station to Tring, you then have services from Euston at Leapfrog to Tring, also you'll stop like Watford Junction as the main station, or Harrow and Wildstone. Trains that go to Tring, and then from Tring continue to every single stop. That continues as far as Rugby, or Milton Keynes Central Rugby, and then it kind of just leapfrogs and goes on from there. So for example, my service in the opposite direction goes from London Euston to Rugby, so leapfrog all the stations bar Milton Keynes Central, and then from Rugby stops at every single station all the way to Crewe. And that way you can have passengers who take a, for example, you live in Rugeley and you're from London but don't want to travel on the fast train to Rugeley. What you can do is you can book a train ticket wherever, take a fast train from London to Rugby, or London to Tring, take a fast train from Tring to Rugby, and take your local train from Rugby to Rugeley. So you kind of split your services from Express, as far as the expresses will go, down to 110, we see enough for that, and then from there, you then take your slow service, your local service, to your local stop. And then of course there's a few services as well that stop at every single station on the West Coast Mainline. For example, how often you have someone going from like London Euston to Penkridge? Penkridge being on the line to Stafford, I believe. Because it kind of I know because I went through Penkridge once to get to Stafford just because it was the quicker route, only one station on there, Penkridge branch. Yeah, so you go to Wolverhampton, and then it's like a one stop, and then you're at Stafford. You get trains direct to London from there. I can't imagine too many people take that service direct, but if anybody is in the chat who does take the London to Penkridge line for London to Penkridge, then do put your hand up. That was Leighton Buzzard, so again another major stop on the way. Another Super Voyager on our right hand side there. The difference between the Super Voyager and Standard Voyager is the Super Voyager tilts, which allows it to maintain high speeds in the curves, West Coast Mainline. Leighton Buzzard also used to be a terminus stop, or a junction station even, for the, I want to say Dunstable Railway. I think it's Dunstable, just to the east of Leighton Buzzard between it. Yes, it's Leighton Buzzard, Dunstable and Luton on that line. And the railways closed in the 1960s and have since been turned into the Dunstable Super Busway network, which again I have used. In that case I was going go-karting out in Dunstable. Once again, back up to max throttle, now trying to speed its way through to London. Looking at 0932 ETA, so again doing pretty good for timing. Pushing ourselves on third rails, we've so far covered just under 45 miles, just over 70 kilometres from start so far. Which means we're also about halfway there. It's about 80 miles from London to Rugby, about 80 miles. Also means, also within 30 minutes now of the end of the service. So sit back, relax, enjoy the rest of our line. Going through Chedington, just up ahead. Chedington does have 4 platforms, both the high-speed lines and low-speed lines. The high-speed platforms only ever used on track work for the local slow lines. These platforms here never see fast train stops. And like I say, it's a very rural area, Chedington. A few houses, there's about 3 or 4 miles just to the east of here, to the east. Factories and warehouses, but not a lot going on over here. Quite a nice few hills though. Like I say, one of those stations that I'd like to visit one day. Not much to do, but has a semi-regular train service that get there anyway. Looking around the half-past arrival time, so another 25 minutes or so to London. Once we hit Watford Junction, that's when we start being a bit more focused, I guess, in terms of the train operation. Since there's, well, a lot more to go on there. A lot more speed restrictions as well. In our case, it's a green signal. On the left-hand side's double yellow flashing, so that's basically then driver on the far left slow lane. But there's a speed limit change coming up ahead. Blocks and potentially either a set of points or another bit of traffic coming in the opposite direction. Answer. Signals over there. Quite a few signals up ahead. Potential then points for the platforms at Tring coming up. Semi-guided flashing. Just passed through Pitstone Green. Platforms just up ahead. Guess that was a bit of a vantage point on the platforms. Again, Tring, quite a small little town. There's a large town about 3 miles to the west of the station. And I say, Tring kind of forms the first of the terminus stations, terminus routes out of London. And so, going back to what I was talking about earlier, the crash. So, back in I want to say 48 or 58, but I'm probably wrong with the year. There was a collision formed of 3 trains out of Harrow Station. So, you had a fast service going to, I believe it was Manchester at the time. You had a local Watford DC train and a local train from Tring going towards London Euston. There were 2 factors, so the slow lines were closed for maintenance on that weekend. It was a weekend and weekday, basically the lines were closed, so all trains running through the fast lines, and in some cases, where required, onto the Watford DC lines. So the mainline train, the Manchester train heading towards London Euston, was stationary at platform 3 or... platform 3 or 4, I think platform 3. And stuck a red signal for a couple of minutes, or a red semaphore back then. You then had the local train from Tring, who was running about 20 minutes late. Driver was trying to catch up time and went through a red signal unknowingly, because at the time it was very foggy, low visibility, very poor weather. So train driver went through the red signal and ended up crashing into the back of the stationary train at platform, Harrow Wellstone platform. Then, at the same time, another train, local train, went through. Passed through at the same time to crash, so that got involved, 3-train wreck. And then, I can't remember, there was a Watford DC train involved, if that one was impacted on the other tracks, or narrowly avoided it. But it was a 3-4 train pile-up at Harrow Wellstone, and is, to this day, the worst peacetime casualty number in the UK, post-war. 100 and something casualties, 110 I think it was, casualties. Look at photos of it online, it's a big crash that. And ultimately led to the early creation of what is AWS, the Train Alerting Warning System. So now, instead of passing through red signal, nothing happens, you get the buzzer, which warns you of the upcoming signal changes. So that was then developed from it, but it took until the Clapham Junction incident, which then made it... Clapham Junction kind of then sped up development of it, and then it was one on the Great Western Mainline in 1996 that they made it regulation legal that you had to have it on at all times. There's a long history of UK railway and safety systems. Again, well worth researching. You can get a bit more of an in-depth history behind that. Okay, just about to pass through Hemel Hempstead next. After Hemel Hempstead, the next major station will be Watford Junction. So like I say, from that point on, we need to put a bit more focus on the actual train controls during operation for the next bit of our journey. Like I say, it's quite nice to be in a fast train, speed through the main city, speed through everything, just run straight through to London. And to cover, well, Rugby to London an hour. I mean, the fastest time to get from Birmingham to London will be 1 hour 20 minutes on the Pendolinos. So to get Rugby to London an hour, well, 59, 57 odd minutes, it's a good feat of, like, well, how the train operates, both the speed, both the operation of it. It's very well tuned. These 350 units do pack a punch. Do very much pack a punch there. For the Voyager trying to go by. Going through Apsley next. King's Langley slowly coming towards us now. So King's Langley is the last real the first. If you go to the northwest of England, or outside of London, sorry, to the northwest outside of London, King's Langley is really the first town you really hit outside of the Greater London region, because you've already got Watford, which is of course Hertfordshire rather than London. Fun fact: Watford is not in London, never has been, it never will be. There are a lot of people. Well, people who say Watford are in London, or Watford is in London, are those who live in Watford. Everywhere else, Watford is outside of London. It's within the M25 boundary, but not within London itself. But King's Langley is the first real township you get when leaving London area to the northwest. So you look at the map as well on the third rails portion on the right. There you can start to see that it gets to get a bit busier. So more houses, more buildings, more roads, as everything starts to get a little bit more built up. And also very much within the commuting distance of London as well. So if you work within London, King's Langley station probably gets to the central of London in about, well, 20-30 minutes. In that case, like 15 even to the end of the line now. And the local service to our left. Oops, down to 110 again, so drop the brakes a tiny bit, so just again that train naturally slow down, coast down. And notch one, just put a little bit of power in train, just kind of keep it rolling. Right, so Watford Junction now visible on the map. And if you look at the third rails map, you can also see the St Albans Abbey line, Watford North and Garston stations, both appearing on that. So if I leave my... let's have ready on the controls now. Got tiny bits. So Watford Junction is where things really start to get a bit busy now. If I zoom myself right up to the station, there's the Abbey line. Sorry, that's the Cortland's siding, sorry. That's not the Abbey line. Abbey line is a single bit of track that heads just outside the station itself. Just visible there, the far end of the station. We position ourselves onto the high-speed tracks, platform 7. Let's come through. There we go. So you have your fast lines, you have your slow lines, you have the Watford Abbey line, and also the Watford DC lines, which terminate here at Watford Junction, and at one point also had Bakerloo lines that terminate here as well. But back in the 1980s, 86 I want to say, the line was then brought back from Watford Junction and now terminates at Harrow and Waterstone. You have the Bushy Viaduct, which is not quite parallel to us, but it's in the distance over there, running its own separate bridge. That goes via Bushy Station and Watford High Streets. Then merges together at Bushy Station. You'll see the curved platform on the right hand side. And at this point on, we now run as 6 tracks rather than 4 tracks. So you have our slow lines to the left, fast lines in the middle, Watford DC on the far right. You have your up lines to London, your down lines to destinations. Uplands Park Station now on the right hand side. Voyager as well. A busy day for Voyagers, I must say. Quite a few services we've seen on the track so far. In terms of the West Coast Mainline south routes that you do get this sim, you get the Voyagers, obviously, is what train sets. You get the Class 350 units as well for the London Midland Railway, and you also get the United Pendolino as well in Trenitalia Avanti West Coast colours. The 390 Pendolino, part of the original 390 Pendolino Pro Adam that Dovetail had, but when Virgin trains were made defunct, they kind of lost the last of that, so it's now been all made up pretty. It's a good train. It's a good train. I've done a few videos on that in the past, and yeah, still one of my favourites in the sim. 390 Pendolino is still one of my favourites in the UK, but not quite 395 level. The 395 Javelin still my top train, one of my favourites here in the country. But for me, I'm going to be a networker. The 166, 165, 36 something, can't remember the for that one on the Great Northern. You've got the 465 and 466s, obviously. Classic networkers. Can't go wrong with them for me. Great little trains. So head to the lane down the right hand side. Very shortly we're passing through Harrow and Waterstone, which was the terminus of the Bakerloo line, and also the next platform to go through. Increase speed again slightly because we have lagged a little bit on the speed I've noticed. Dropped down about 75 miles per hour, still 110 at this point on. If I was to give one negative to the Electrostars, it's the very tiny boxed-in window that it kind of sat in. And obviously when trains connect you can create a gangways that allow passengers to go through the train without any problem. But you do kind of lose some of the driving space and you get stuck in this little box. But it's obviously, it's not bad to work through. I mean, in terms of train control, you got it all in front of you, so you got your speedometer, you got your breaker pressure, sorry, that's your brake pressure, that's your electricity, all your controls, that kind of stuff. It's all there, it's all stuff that you can very much use. For junction, sorry, Harrow and Waterstone. But again, with the networkers, because especially the 465, 466, which are, well, oops, in the wrong seats. Which the so the networkers became the Electrostar. Well, the 166, 165 became the Turbo Stars. The ones 465, 466 became the Electrostars. And so, I guess one of the benefits of having the network of the ball front wide base is that you have much bigger windows, no gangway in the middle to break it all apart. They are very cozy trains to work with them. Again, Electrostars, more efficient, high top speeds, run a lot faster, better capacity. New trains have better benefits. People may not like them as much. New trains do certainly have their benefits. So now passing through Kenton, South Kenton. Just like a pack up there. Pass through North Wembley and Wembley Central. Outside Wembley Central, you'll then see the DC line on the right hand side dip underground, and then that eventually appears on the left hand side after it goes through all the depots. And then things start getting a little bit more interesting in regards to the track as well. Still looking good for speed, and I need to start decelerating just yet. Through Watford. Down to 110 now. We will follow. It's this point now. We'll start slow down to the arrival at the terminus later on. So you can now see on the right side there's no more of DC line. We are now on the outside railways out of London. Stonebridge Park station slightly out to the left hand side. Burgess again with the main line through Harlesden. Okay, just about to see the track now. Not quite connected to us, there's a bit of a gap, a bit of a distance. Again, we do start to merge now, and slowly all the lines come 6 again. Going through the EWS sidings, English West Scottish, well, was the English West Scottish, now part of Deutschbahn, EWS, now part of DB. That's the freight networks there. Left hand side you've got the Roslyn Junction bus depot. I believe it's Metro Line, as wasn't depot, I believe it's Metro Line, that one. Down to 85, that 1 mile, mile and a half. Light train again naturally slow down, coast down as we make the approach, but we'll put a little bit of braking in later on to get close to that speed. 85 down to 80, about 100 yards after that. As your overground to the DC line. Now it's a capsule unit based on Electrostar, but doesn't have the gangways at the front and also full traverse seating within the interiors. So it's a train very much built for commuter and high capacity. You see, we naturally slow down to 85 by the 85 point. Again, let's down to 80 on its own as well, and then potentially down to 55 as well before we need to put any braking in anyway. As it's slowing down, it's a very simple train to coast. Oops. Wasn't an AWS alarm there. And slightly speeding, so a little bit braking in. At this point, we now start to assist it with its approach into Euston. Euston, of course, seems to get another line. We're going to have the HS2 network that starts out of Euston. And they'll be currently on the far west side of the station, so knocked down a couple of old apartment buildings. And eventually we'll replace it with new platforms. They exit out of Euston, very soon dig into the tunnel, and shoot for Old Oak Common, where it connects to the Great Western Mainline, and from Old Oak Common, down to Birmingham on the high-speed lines. A little bit more braking now, drop down to 55. That'll do for now. On the off position, down to 50 outside of the St John's Tunnel here. You pass through Camden Town, which was the original, not terminus, but the original kind of train warehousing and depot for Robert Stephenson's original West Coast Mainline. Very fine, and very shortly also arrive at Robert Stephenson's great London Euston station. Stephenson, of course, being the one who was the first kind of, well, London Birmingham Railway was Robert Stephenson's creation, and I believe it was his son that extended it from Birmingham up towards the northern regions. The Stephenson family were very much with the early days of the railway. Don't forget, it was Stephenson's rocket. That was the first train to ever run here in the UK. Right, 1 mile to go now. Back on the brakes, bring that to about 40. In terms of timing, we are in fact about 10 minutes early, which is better than I was expecting early, so that's always another benefit as well, or another bonus. I think we've actually done rather well for our time right now. And then we're expected to arrive into platform number 3. In reality, London Northeastern Railway trains, London Northwestern trains end up in the east part of the so platform 12 is on the schedule right now. We'll be going to the Avanti platform 3 for later. Dual yellow, so that was the WS for that. Let's know that the next signal will be yellow, single yellow. And after that, red signal means stop, and that'll be ending the platforms. Below 40 miles per hour. Down to 25 on the approaching station. And this is a single yellow. Just above that, you can see number 3 is listen up. So, actually, that number 3 is new. Whoops. Emergency brakes. What done wrong there? What have I done wrong there? Was it speed related? I imagine that was speed related. I think like 1 or 2 miles per hour just above the 40 limit. That's a whoops on my part. Just quietly resume journey there. I'm sure I was braking at least, well, not enough for the tripcock to not go off. Tripcock is king. Never go against what tripcock says. Right, bring that back. Go down to 15 dense platforms. Bring our train to a rest. We'll be sure to bring it down below 15 this time. In fact, we'll bring it down to maybe 5-10 miles per hour. Into station as slow as possible. For maximum safety as we cross the outer platform. It's a very little station this here at Euston as well. Very nice looking terminus ends here. A few shops to the back, a little bit of the arcade. Comes together, does look rather good. And of course the town of Flange, so a train that's slowly across the end of the platform. Bring it right to the buffers, stop just short of that. Stay up the train and bring it to an end. Bit braking on, just help to slow down. Just before the blue fence. Brake, bring it to a stop. Doors open. Now press disembark, set the reverser to the off position, leave it at full brake. Lights will also switch off as well. I must say, not a bad run that. Not a bad run at all. Well done, you've reached the end of this quick drive scenario. Let's see how we did. Yeah, Simo to catch up, there we go. Right, so, like I said, that was service 1 uniform at 20, and that's the 0714 from Crewe to London Euston from Rugby, taking over to Euston. Took us a total 1 hour on the clock, 1 hour 7 seconds, so we've done pretty rough timing there. Hit PWX 4 times at the very end there, sped 9 times again. Small things. I'm sure with more route knowledge, things will start to work out from there. But I'll say, it's a fun little route, this Euston to Birmingham to Euston, Euston to Birmingham, West Coast Mainline South. That was the Class 350 EMU. That was a trip from Rugby to London Euston. And yeah, that brings us now to the end of our little journey today. So thank you all for watching. Thank you all for taking part. Massive thank you to Dovetail Games for allowing me to take part in their March Madness as well. As always, much appreciated. Always enjoy doing these little extra community things as well. Just kind of showcasing more of you guys as well. So if you want to see more of me, I'm at YouTube on I'm on YouTube as Drawyah, so feel free to search on that. And yeah, I guess it's on to the next showcase now. So thank you for watching, take care, and I'll see you again later. Bye bye, and thank you.